You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm your host, Dimitri Vitsa. I'm also the CEO and founder of Rock, Paper, Scissors, a PR firm that specializes in music tech, music innovation, all sorts of stuff. And one of the best things about running the podcast and the PR firm is we hear about some of the coolest and newest music innovation ideas before they hit the market. And we recently got wind of a very cool one whose founder we're featuring today. You've heard about all the innovation happening with stems, right? The individual instrumental or vocal tracks that make up a recorded song. But all along, there's been this question of how does that affect anyone other than a producer or remixer? It's like got all this potential, but what next? Well, this is a good one because it unlocks this aspect of music customization to a new audience, which is what I've been waiting for. But before we get there, our guest already has a long-standing and successful company, so we want to hear about that too. I'd like to welcome to the show Ryan Wines. He's the founder and CEO of Marmoset and Track Club. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Dimitri, thanks for having me. Glad
Great
to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. Appreciate you taking the time. And I'm excited to dig in because we haven't had deep conversations, you and I, yet. And it's always fun when we can really dig in while we're recording it for a whole audience, right? So
Love it. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, tell us about what Marmoset does. And then later we'll get into your new startups, Track Club.
Sure. Yeah, so Marmoset is a music agency that represents recordings from independent artists and labels. Tends to be rare and hard to find music, some vintage music as well. And we represent those recordings for sync licensing in advertising, branding, TV and film, pretty much anything you can imagine where there would be a need for music. You know, usually content with video, although it could be a podcast or some kind of experiential sort of situation. But yeah, anywhere you would find music in content, there's a good chance that we've been involved or have done something like that before. I'd say the most common places we tend to work more in branding and advertising than TV and film, but we do it all. And every brand that you could name, imagine, or think of, we have certainly worked with them on some level, whether it's, you know, the more traditional television commercials, all Super Bowl campaigns and things like that. Although, you know, certainly a lot of content is now moved online and to all kinds of different streaming platforms and uses. And we do all of that too. And it's a lot of fun. The best, most exciting part, of course, is our connection to the artists and our ability to be part of their ecosystem, you know, providing really meaningful income for those hardworking blue-collar artists and small independent record labels, in addition to the impact we're able to have on the broader community.
Cool. Awesome. So how does that work, the sync portion on the brand side? Are you pitching ad agencies or brand in-house ad people at brands? Are they pitching you? Are they asking for stuff? Are they sending you briefs? Is it all about those relationships or this hunt? What is it?
The simple answer is yes to everything you just said. So we are often pitching to advertising agencies, direct to brands, small companies, emerging tech companies. They're often reaching out to us, defining music, and you know, the best situation is they find the song that they want to use and they reach out and say, "Let's do this." We do have a pretty compelling, pretty successful web platform, or app as they call it, website, you know, for the old timers like you and I, where clients can go and search, find music, and then find the song, and then they can either license it, you know, through the app, or what happens most of the times they reach out to us because they're usually more complicated sort of endeavors, and we'll work with them to find the perfect situation, terms, and scenario for that. But our app is always worth checking out. It's marmosetmusic.com. It won a Webby Award back in the day when it first launched, the South by Southwest Interactive Award, and has always been kind of on the I don't know, innovative tip of what's going on in the sync world.
Love it. Super cool. So you got into this a little bit, but I'd like to dig a little deeper. What do you find most fulfilling about working in the music licensing and sync world?
Yeah. You know, the most compelling piece is the impact we can have on community. Our purpose at Marmoset is to be community. And that happens in a lot of different ways. I'll try to dig a little deeper. I mean, of course, there's the artists, there's the staff and people that we work for and able to create jobs for and employ. There's all kinds of different, I guess, ways that we do that. I'd say in the most simplest forms, I'd say like just by doing the most basic part of our business, helping a client find a song, to license for a project. Just by doing our most basic thing, we share somewhere between 30 to 75% of that transaction with the artists and labels that we work with. So just by doing our most basic thing, by default, we're supporting hardworking blue-collar artists and small independent record labels, putting cash into their wallets, which we know pays rent and mortgages and puts food on their tables and clothes on their kids and helps them continue to make the music and art that they want to do. So that's the first most important part of the circle of life, as I would call it. After that, the next big part of that split that comes off of a transaction or sales with a client, the next 25% of that revenue goes to support fair and equitable pay and benefits for our staff. So I like to think that's pretty impactful too. We've got about 50 full-timers and a bunch of other collaborators and contractors. And our benefits include our benefits have the highest amount of paid time off I've ever heard referenced at any company. Our average employee takes about 8.5 weeks of PTO annually. We pay 100% of healthcare premiums for individuals and a lot for families. And because, on some basic level, healthcare is something we shouldn't have to consistently pay out of pocket for. Am I right?
Yeah. Sign me up, man.
Yeah. And so, it's the work we do is hard and it's at times monotonous. It's a lot of doing the same thing day to day, every day. But I'll tell you, it's worth it. Seeing the impact to the artists and to our staff is really worth it. And I know that beyond those things, we also give 10% of every of all of our profits go to community orgs, people that are working really hard, to make an impact, which is always good. We gave over $100,000 in 2020 to community orgs, and over $100,000 in 2022. So if you put that all together, I mean, it was almost $250,000 over the past 2 years, and that's I don't know. It's meaningful to know that that there's a higher meaning in the things that you're doing. We're also a certified B Corp, which is a whole nother thing we could get into if that makes sense. But really, when I boil it all down, it's just making impact. Life is too short to just build a business and do this work just to amass wealth and power and make something bigger and grow. I mean, really, for us, it's about being community.
Awesome. Wow, that's super cool. That's a lot of different stuff, and it's super cool to hear that as right at the beginning of our episode. Really, is part of the conversation. I'm curious to you mentioned earlier you mentioned the awards, and that your website and platform have been kind of cutting edge all along, getting these awards and so forth. It seems like from the outside that music licensing has really matured. And somewhat thanks to an acceptance of rights holders that digital consumption is here to stay, that there isn't just one method of how to quote use music or quote monetize music, but it means that it's opening up these licensing opportunities. It seems like it's unlocking more doors for more opportunities. What are some emerging trends in sync licensing that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, when we started about 10, 11 years ago, we were still having a lot of conversations with artists, about selling out. There was a lot of concern. That's not that long ago, where there were some artists that would decline to work with us because they looked at it as, being contrary to the nature of the art that they were making. And I'll be the first to tell you, I never want to represent someone's music that doesn't want to use it, for sync. You have to be kind of all in on it for it to make sense. And I have the utmost respect for artists that want to kind of set their work aside as something different. But fast forward to today, you're right. There's so many opportunities, new emerging opportunities, especially as content, becomes so varied and so personalized and individualized. I'd say that one of the biggest areas that we've seen over the past perhaps 3 or 4, maybe 5 years is the creator economy. And I'm speaking about TikTokers and YouTubers, podcasters and Instagrammers, everyone or anyone, to be specific, that has a computer and can, record a video or even an audio recording and then, release it somehow on the World Wide Web. The creator economy is the fastest growing um, uh, small business sector globally.
Hmm.
I mean, it's wild. And so anyone that's creating that content practically uses, they virtually all use music. And, something that's really nice is in 2022, most content creators understand that they need to use music lawfully and in an appropriate and, legal way. And so that marketplace, as it continues to expand and evolve, is really fascinating to me. And so it's a different marketplace than where we have worked historically. So your typical TV and film music licensing or brand and advertising music licensing is a whole different marketplace, a different approach, a different sometimes vernacular and words that we use and way to approach it. So I find that to be really exciting, really empowering, and also kind of mind blowing if you can imagine how much the creator economy will likely grow within the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, it's crazy when you get into it and you realize to think of those creators as businesses, the way you mentioned, as small businesses, and recognizing that music is almost always a part of some aspect of what they're doing. It's kind of mind blowing because you go from this, yeah, like you said, some artists were like, I don't want to put my music with a brand because it's selling out, but
Yeah.
now, such a high percentage of any engagement with music is related to some brand using their music, but the brands are people, instead of it being like
Right.
just the Nikes and the Starbucks and the Targets of the world. It's like,
Yeah.
Jack and Jill
Yeah.
and Muhammad
Yeah.
and Jose and, everybody's doing
It's
something.
wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. There's some data that says there's more than 50 million creators worldwide who would identify in the creator economy as creating content or media of some kind. And that's just today. This marketplace is virtually endless. I mean, there was a recent survey that found that American kids, a higher percentage would rather be a YouTuber today than an astronaut when they grow up, which is kind of mind blowing. I'm not sure I like that statistic, and I have asked my kids about it. But it's just, the opportunity to have a platform and have a medium and to basically be and or create whatever your little heart can imagine is pretty wild. And I guess I'd say, like, to understand the industry a little deeper, it's interesting to know like who's funding it. So advertisers and marketers of all shapes and sizes are the biggest single source of financing behind the creator economy. So they're in many cases paying influencers to promote their products and services and brands. It's estimated that creator sponsorships will grow to more than $20 billion by the end of this year, which is wild. And and again, asking why does this matter to our conversation right now? It's because nearly all of the content being created, features music, and so it's again a different marketplace emerging and running very quickly, but also just really, really fascinating. I try to think about where it will be, 3, 5, 10 years from now. It's hard to imagine if you're following in technology the evolution from the initial internet, boom back in the, I don't know, perhaps like late 90s, to what's been called Web 2.0, which is, where a lot of your Facebooks and Googles and I guess pay to play kind of gated, or, you have to have an account and you stay within the ecosystem sort of concepts, to what's emerging now, the conversations around Web 3.0. You hear about most through the words around blockchain and maybe crypto or NFTs, where we're just on the very tip of the spear, the tip of the iceberg on Web 3.0. And so to think about where it may go. And I guess to dig a little deeper, the concept is really about opening things up, a little more open source than what Web 2.0 is. And I think when we get there, whatever there is, it's going to really empower creators to create and do and participate, engage online in a way that's never been done before. I don't think we're going to be held to, say, Instagram or TikTok. You're going to have content and creators that can really be new, I guess, brand or platform neutral. It's probably a better way of saying that, but where they, you no longer does some big corporation hold the keys to how you're putting your content out. It's really going to take form with a lot more freedom, which is really interesting to think about.
Yeah, cool. So I think this is a good setup for talking about your startup track club. But before we get there, we're going to take a break. And I want to make sure we get back to a little bit about this sync role too, even before that. So when we come back, I'm going to ask you a bit about what kind of resources are out there for music supervisors. We will be right back. Well, this is a fun episode. Hey, it's Dimitri with Music Tectonics. I've also got Shaylee Ankenbrook and Ben Westenberger with me. Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Shaylee. I'm the conference planner for Music Tectonics, and I'm so excited for Music Biz this year.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Westenberger. I'm the business development coordinator at Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I'm super excited to go to my first ever Music Biz.
Yeah, so we just thought we'd give you a quick mention that we'll be at Music Biz, and we hope you will be too. If you can come out to it, make sure to reach out to us. Let's get together. And we thought we'd just take a quick break from the podcast and tell you a little bit about what we're up to. I know that on the Tuesday night, we'll be at the In the Know party that Tom Truitt hosts. We're actually co-sponsoring that at Music Tectonics, so excited for that. And then I'll be moderating a panel called How to Activate Startup Talent in Today's Music Business on Monday from 11 a.m. And that's a partnership we're doing with Universal Music Group. They are doing a whole series of programming for music tech startups. So super excited to be a part of that, and hope you'll be able to come out for some of that. Some of that stuff is workshops that are invitation only. You can still sign up to try to be one of the startups in basically onboarding with Universal Music. But regardless of whether you do that, I know on that Monday there's a startup mixer from 4 p.m. that Shaylee and I are going to co-host with UMG. Shaylee, what else are we excited about at Music Biz?
Yeah, so another thing that I'm most excited about is Universal's doing a panel called The Female Experience in Music Tech. There's going to be some great panelists from Universal, Spotify, and Island Records. That's going to be on Tuesday morning at 9:30. And I just think this is a really amazing opportunity to bring together not only the not only the women in the music industry, but kind of all the executives in the music industry, and dive into some of these systematic issues that we're seeing. And then this is followed by 2 days of leadership and networking events. So it should be a good time.
Yeah, super cool that Universal's doing both this focus on startups, especially those from the southeast part of the U.S., and putting a highlight on women in music tech, and sort of doing not only building like a network of women who can continue to build from each other, but also just bringing some awareness to some of the challenges of being a woman in the music industry and growing your career and leadership and so forth. So that's super cool. Ben, like you said, it's your first Music Biz. Have you had a chance to look at the schedule and picked out some things to check out?
I have. I'm super excited to get down there and shake some hands. I'm excited to go to the Navigating New Strategies, how A&R, artist marketing, and distribution come together in the age of streaming on Monday. Excited to hear about, all the coming to an even playing field for independent artists. And I'm also looking forward to the A DAO Named Sue part of the schedule and seeing how artists are leveraging Web 3.0 and hearing from one of the co-founders of Audius.
Oh yeah, Renil's going to be down there. One of our clients. Will be great to see him as well. Super cool. And Ben, and Shaylee, we'll all just kind of be around, right? We're looking to meet up with as many innovators and startups that might want to check out Music Tectonics and Rock, Paper, Scissors. Should be fun.
Oh yeah.
Sounds fun.
And so, again, if you want to check out the UMG startup component, if you want to apply to be one of the startups in their workshop, we'll put a link in our newsletter, or you can check it out on the Music Biz schedule. That's their series of workshops that start May 9th. All right, guys, let's start packing up for Nashville.
All right. Peace
Sounds
out,
great.
everyone. See you in Nashville.
All right, we're back. And as I mentioned right before the break, Ryan, I want to ask you, if you were a new music supervisor, what resources would you want to know about? What are the conferences, the newsletters, the trade groups? Where do you start?
Yeah, it's pretty overwhelming, all the opportunities and all the places you can go. Again, if we go back to when we started, 11 years ago, um, and I'm sure you remember this, Dimitri, it was all about the cool music blogs.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was, places like, Gorilla versus Bear or Stereo Gum or even Pitchfork. There were all these really cool kind of DIY, kind of indie music discovery places that a lot of music supervisors would use to find new music. Now it seems that streaming music platforms have really taken over as being go-to resources for how people find and explore music. That said, there are certainly newsletters and conferences and things you can go to. I'll share just one that I personally really enjoy, and it's off the beaten path and very, I think, specific and unique. But there's a songwriting festival that happens in Hawaii called the Hawaii Songwriters Festival, of all things. And I've been participating, and Marmoset has been a sponsor of scholarships for access for Hawaiians for the past maybe 6 or 7 years. And they certainly took a break in COVID, but the experience has been so special. So if you've ever been to a tropical island or Hawaii, you have to know when you're there, you just get caught up in the vibe. You get caught up in the magic of being on an island. But then what generally happens there is the music industry from the mainland, let's say, goes over to Hawaii to basically take knowledge and wisdom and experience and conversations and mentorship to locals on the islands. Because, proximity wise, it's hard for folks to get over to the mainland and really have access to all of those things. And so myself and many other of our competitors and professional friends and colleagues, we all go over there for a week and a half to just immerse ourselves and be available as a resource to Hawaiians. And it's so fun. There's so much music discovery. There's so much up and coming talent that goes over there. And the first half is a conference, as you can imagine, where all different kind of nooks and crannies and aspects of the music industry. A lot of songwriting is the focus. So songwriting groups and production groups and panels and talks. But then the second half of the conference is actually an immersive workshop where I believe it's application and acceptance only. It's a smaller group of perhaps, 20 or 30, I'll call them students or attendees, who then go deep dive with, there's companies like myself, there's companies like Secret Road, publishing and several other companies and music agencies that go over there and really get in the trenches and create music for sync. And it's a blast. There's some celebrities and so kind of behind the scenes songwriters and producers who are in on major music and radio hits. But it's just a really fascinating experience, and for anyone that ever has the opportunity to be part of it or to go, I highly encourage it. And if anybody wants to hear more about it, I'm a bit of an ambassador for the Hawaii Songwriting Festival. So hit me up if you're interested in seeing. Perhaps you want to contribute scholarships so people can attend, or perhaps you want to be part of it and attend. There's lots of opportunities to get into it, but that's one way that I stay connected and find a really good engagement with the industry.
That's cool. It was not the answer I was expecting, and super cool. Just goes to show that you're looking off the beaten path sometimes, which is probably a great place to be as somebody who's a curator to curators of music.
That's right.
So earlier you were talking about the kind of this emergence of the creator economy. And I mentioned in the intro that you guys have this startup that's related to kind of a new way to think about how to use music. But you've launched Track Club. Why don't you just tell us about that and why you started it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, Marmoset is the mothership. We've been doing music licensing for a while now. And as I explained earlier, this new marketplace has taken off over the past 3 or 4 years in the creator economy. The traditional sync music, I'd say, approach and industry is not by default well positioned to serve this creator economy. And so, as a solution to this growing need, there has been an emergence of creator sync platforms that have taken off. To name a few, I could name Epidemic Sound or Artlist or Soundstripe, which are all companies that are on the leading edge of that, and ones that I have some admiration for the way that they've taken off. And so to serve that economy a little bit better, we have launched Track Club as a spin-off of Marmoset. And so, where the, let's say, traditional music licensing clients, say for TV or film or broadcast advertising, when they want a song, they tend to want one song at a time. So they would come to Marmoset and they'd find a song that they like, and then they would negotiate terms. Then there'd be a contract for the song. And, it's a very kind of relationship-based one-on-one project, to make it happen. And the fees can be they can be varied. They could to have a song in a broadcast brand commercial or a film could be in upwards of $100K or more. And if it's smaller, more specific content, let's say for a platform like Facebook or Instagram or an ad like that, it could be I don't know, $2 or $3 or $4,000 for that placement. But those again are kind of these one-off, one at a time sort of transactions. Well, the creator marketplace, if you're a YouTuber, a TikToker, an Instagrammer, or a podcaster like yourself, Dimitri, you probably don't have the resources, to spend, even $1,000 or $2,000 per song you're going to use, in each, let's say, episode or show or whatever your content is you're doing. And so, and also if you're putting out content, let's say weekly or daily, you don't have the time to go back and forth, emailing or calling, So what it really lends itself to is a subscription platform where you pay a monthly or an annual fee, and then you can it's self-serve. So you have access to a platform. Let's just say it's similar to maybe using Netflix or Disney Plus or Amazon or something, where you have your login, you go in, you find the content that you want to use. For us, it's the music you want to use, and you can just grab and go. There's no slowing down to negotiate terms or email someone back and forth and take all that time. You just use the platform, find the song you want, and I think the ease of use and the low friction is really what drives that. I'd say high volume life that is being a creator.
So
does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's a subscription-based model, or people are paying track by track, or both.
That's right. So it's subscription-based. So you would so as we talk about Track Club, it's it's monthly or annually, and you have access to all the music on the platform, which for us is, I think, out of the gate we're launching with, I think, around 5,000 or 6,000 songs on day one, and we have a lot of work and a big backlog of music we're adding to it. So in a short time, we'll be probably around 10,000 songs, and then we'll just keep continuing to it. But the real interesting piece, I think, for us in Track Club is we are the first certified B Corp in the game, and so if you care about where your dollars go and things like equity and transparency and long-term sustainability of who you do business with, we are currently the only option out there that is that meets those needs for sustainability and equity and long-term sustainability and good business practices. Beyond that, we are also the only option that gives 10% back to community orgs, supporting things like social justice and houselessness and education and access to education. But I'd say once you get past kind of the purpose and values part of what we're about at Track Club, we have a really interesting feature that we're learning that is in pretty high demand out there by high volume content creators, and that's a feature that we call Mix Lab at Track Club. And essentially, I think you led with this at the top of the show. You can access all of the stems for a song. So if a song has maybe 10 or 15 or 20 STEM groups. And for those that might want to know more about that, a STEM group would be, perhaps the percussions or the guitars or the lead guitar, the bass guitar or keyboards or vocals or background vocals. Like each one of those, let's call them instrument groups, would be a STEM group. And so if you find a song on Track Club that you like, every song on Track Club has all the stems available. So if you want to download all the stems, you can do that. And why would someone want to download all the stems? Well, if you have some advanced skills in production or music production, you might want to bring those into your own platform, your own computer, and customize the song on your own. However, if you don't have those advanced skills to download all the stems and kind of freeform craft the song how you want it to be crafted, you can actually use this in-app feature called MixLab, where you can customize the song to make it exactly what you need. And so, what does that look like? It looks like you have a song, and let's say the kick drum is a little too loud, or maybe the lead guitar is a little too distracting for your podcast. You can open up the MixLab feature, and you could mute the kick drum, or you could turn down that distracting lead guitar. You could mute the vocals. You can make all the adjustments in the song to make it 100% original to what you need. So you are essentially in the producer chair. You can picture yourself at a big board, and you're turning levels up and turning them down. That's what you're doing in Track Club. And then when you get the song just right, just how you want it, you can actually just press and click a download button. And so your custom mix of what you just created, co-producing the song with us, you can download it right there in the moment as an MP3 or a high-res A4 wave to your computer. And then you can use that in your podcast or your TikTok or your YouTube. And you can actually, have it any way you like. And so, while we may only be launching with 5,000 songs and we'll soon be up to 10,000 songs, in reality, you've got infinite songs because you can change them and customize each and every song to be exactly what you want it to be. So the variation and options are really kind of crazy. And that's us at Marmoset betting on customization needs being the future for music licensing, being able to have it how you want it, no longer having to sift through tens of thousands or even hundreds of songs to find that perfect song. You can now create that perfect song. And it's pretty exciting.
That's cool. I've been in the industry for a couple decades and not directly involved with any kind of sync or music supervising or anything like that. But I remember just probably a decade ago when people would say, well, what do you need to do to get your song synced? Well, make sure you've got an instrumental version. And that was kind of,
that's right.
Have both
right.
Have both sides of the rights for the song cleared and have an instrumental version. And then later, these people started saying, well, make sure you have stems. And so that came along. But again, that wasn't like a web-based editor, a WYSIWYG editor of muting certain stem tracks or whatever. And so like this is, and it's interesting that what you're saying about customization kind of just parallels this idea of personalization that seems to be a really big emerging trend across all sorts of stuff, even on, this is kind of a B2B offering, although it's or it's a B2 prosumer offering or something like that. But like in everything, people are expecting more and more personalization. So that customization sounds very, very in line with like that larger trend. Was it that kind of experience in traditional sync that led to the idea of MixLab?
Yeah. As you explained, it emerged, 5 years ago, plus or minus, where, some of our traditional clients for sync licensing would ask for stems because they wanted to make some adjustments, some customizations. And so, we started getting ahead of that back then. So we saw it coming, but, there's just so much about the creator economy as it's growing so rapidly. This is about individualization and individual expression, and each person, really wanting to make their unique statement on whatever they're doing. And so to be able to have that level of customization is huge. And, also just kind of thinking about the way this industry has historically worked. There's competitors out there. Perhaps let's say APM Music. They have almost 1 million tracks in their catalog. And that they're a really big one. I believe they're backed or owned by Sony. And there's other really big ones like Audio Networks. There's a company called Megatrax, and they all boast more than 200,000 songs in their catalog. And some of the newer entries that perhaps I mentioned earlier, I think they've got somewhere between 30 to 50,000 songs right out of the gate. But my question is like, who needs that much music? As somebody who has, supervised before, like I don't want to look through hundreds of thousands of tracks to find the perfect song. Like I want to get in and get out. Time is really, really valuable. And so, our like overarching statement is less is more. We don't need, hundreds of thousands of songs. What we need is one really, really, really high quality roster of artists and one really, really high quality catalog of music to start with. And it doesn't have to be huge if the quality is really high, because I have a strong belief that better is always better than more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So better is always better than more. And then, if you start with better, then having this, virtually endless customization in your hands, it really empowers creators to, to have the best and to be able to customize as they need and save a lot of time, save a lot of energy of digging. Which, I like digging, but I like digging through record crates, at a record shop. That's fun, therapeutic, and so enjoyable for me. But I don't want to dig through, endless, digital music files on somebody's website. I don't care how much I like your website or, how cool of a company you might be. Like, that's just not what I want to do with my time. I want to be getting my work done so I can, do something else or move on to the next project.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see also just the ease of use, the ability for people who normally wouldn't have access to stems, but also wouldn't have necessarily want to spend a lot of time customizing a song. But once it becomes easy, new use cases emerge. So the creativity will be super
That's right.
interesting to see. Like, somebody has a theme song, but then somehow they weave in just part of the theme song in their YouTube video or their podcast or whatever it is. Or, I mean, you mentioned TikTok. I don't know if Track Club stuff is available for licensing directly into TikTok, but you could imagine a lot of interesting things happen. You see so much, the genre of TikTok videos. Well, there's many genres of TikTok videos, but where an element gets isolated from a dance or a stunt, a prank, a mistake, any of those things, well, different stems could be associated with different aspects of that, that prank or
Sure.
that menu recipe demo or, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's fascinating about TikTok is, it started off, I'm going to pretend like I know because I do not dabble in TikTok very often. But I'm going to pretend like I know and say I believe it started off with perhaps 30-second videos. And it really felt like a big karaoke machine in the beginning, where everybody was using mainstream popular music or classics to do fun, interesting, zany videos, to them. So kind of like a karaoke machine. And then, over time it started expanding. I think they went out from there maybe to 60 or a minute 30. On their format, and you started seeing a lot more interesting things happening on TikTok, and it kind of left the karaoke machine behind. It still has some of those qualities if you want to do that, but it just became even more interesting in what people could do. And I don't know if a lot of people know this yet because I've had to look for it to really find it, but TikTok has recently expanded to 10-minute formats. So you can do long form 10 minutes on TikTok. And, the way I see it, putting my entrepreneur business hat on, is I see TikTok putting a really big target on YouTube and other like long format story driven platforms, and saying we're coming after you. We're not just going to be the karaoke machine. And so, with 10-minute format, you're going to have a lot more of the explainer videos, how to videos, expert videos, entertainer videos, interview sort of videos taking place. And so the mainstream or classic top 40 songs may not be the ideal medium anymore for music. There's going to be and already is a need for music that we provide on Track Club. And when you can customize that, because let's say you are doing an interview video, but you want to have some music you turn up and turn down at times, you're going to want to carve that out so that you might have a beat or you might have something more ambient, but you don't want to be competing with that as you're having your interview. And so it really lends itself to the customization feature and the access of a subscription licensing platform like Track Club. And it's exciting. I mean, who knows where TikTok is going to go? And I don't think any of us saw TikTok coming 2 years ago or 3 years ago. don't think we see the next thing coming either. But I can guarantee you, 3 or 4 years from now, there will be something else. I don't know what it will be called. Perhaps it'll be an evolution of TikTok or something completely different. But there's always something new coming, and what we're trying to do through customization and having the streaming platform is to make sure that we are as malleable and as accessible to whatever may come in the future. So we're trying to get a few steps ahead as we go.
I do want to push you on what's coming in the future, but not quite yet. And you mentioned this thing about TikTok's kind of gunning for YouTube. We actually did a news roundup here on Music Tectonics just a couple of weeks ago. Our director of strategy at RPS, Tristra, and our Music Tectonics conference planner, Shaylee, and I did a news roundup. And Tristra found an article that is actually talking about how the explosive views out of the gate on some music YouTube videos are not what they used to be. And there was actually no mention of TikTok in the entire article. But I was like,
wow.
There was conversation about longer YouTube videos. So you get, when the videos are longer, you get fewer videos, or you get fewer views, right? Because people are engaging in a single video for a longer period. So in terms of watch time and in terms of advertising, especially, in video ad breaks, that's still fine, right? Like, because YouTube's kind of good at that. But in terms of those view numbers, it is interesting to see that they didn't mention TikTok, but I think you might be right, Ryan.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I don't think I am a typical use case or data point to be talking about, but I will say, like, I do tend to listen to a lot of long format podcasts. And if you would have told me 5 years ago that I was going to be listening to a lot of hour and a half, 2 hour podcast shows, whether it be interview or story driven, I would have said, no way, I'm never going to listen to something that's that long. Like, give me a 20-minute, 15, 10, 20-minute little bit, and that's all I'm going to have time for. But the format getting longer is fascinating. And I don't know if it just provides for a more like deep dive into whatever the content is, or the material is, or that is fascinating, or what. But at least, again, I'm not a good use case necessarily from a demographic standpoint, but I certainly see an emergence of the really deep dive, longer format content being a real hit. I mean, if you look at if I want to be controversial, let's talk about Joe Rogan. I mean, that show, I think, typically is an hour and a half, maybe, or 2 hours, and I think I've heard it's the best, most listened to show on Spotify. I mean, that's wild that people are taking an hour and a half to 2 hours to listen to anything, let alone a show. I mean, I don't think most people's attention span is that long when it comes to. Yeah, but people aren't spending that much time on a new album, are they?
Yeah,
I don't know.
You mean listening or making one? No, just kidding.
That's right. Yeah, both. Yes to both.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think maybe what as people have kind of, the digital evolution to where people are finding the things that are specifically interesting to them, they can spend more time on it instead of dabbling in lots of little bits. And so we have this interesting ability now to kind of go broad, but also to go deep. And I think people like to go deep once they found something they've liked, and that leads to long form. All right. So it's time for something that we do on every episode, pretty much, is where we ask you to get a little sci-fi with us.
Okay.
What revolutions in ground shaking do you think will take place in sync in the next 5 to 10 years, Ryan? I know you've kind of hinted at some of this stuff, but let's go a little bit further, and then we'll wrap up for the day.
Okay, I'm gonna try going 2 different directions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
One, I would just kind of put and I'd like to underline what I said earlier. What the emergence of Web 3.0 is, we're just barely seeing the first little sprinkles of what it's going to be. And so as I look 3 to 5 years ahead, I don't think most people, whether you're just engaging as a kind of a passive consumer or if you are the creator, I don't see a lot of people being, staying on one platform or 2 platforms very, very much. So you're, Instagram, having an Instagram account. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like the idea of having an Instagram account. They'd love to just go dabble and check it out and watch, but the having the account sometimes feels like, I don't know, a little laborious, or having a Facebook account. I think people would rather just like passively view and passively share content than feel like they have an account where they're locked in a gated community. And it doesn't really translate from
Interesting.
one to another. So
Yeah, let
as
me
we dream
Ryan.
forward,
Yeah, so are you
yeah,
saying, let me just to clarify, are you saying that people do want to post content, they just don't want to feel like it's on sort of an expected time frame and necessarily like that they need to identify with it,
that's right.
or that people are like looking back at a thread of everything they've done?
Yeah, I see something that looks a lot more open source. And so, like, if we, and some of this, is still prognostication and guessing, but imagine something that maybe meets some of the core needs of a Facebook or an Instagram or a TikTok, but it feels more open source, and so it's not really any walls around it. Maybe it's I'm trying to think, like, the Reddit community feels that way a little bit,
I
although
was thinking
it is
that.
on the Reddit platform. But it doesn't. You don't feel really trapped. You feel like you can kind of just get in, get the information you need, maybe post, maybe vote up, maybe share, and get out. I'm trying to think of some other examples. What's the Discord? And while Discord, is kind of a more open source alternative to maybe something like Slack, it's people really enjoy how freeing and how empowered you feel by the kind of open nature of it, and not feeling like you have to be trapped, or there's no paywall and things like that. So I think it's going to be something a lot more freeing, and I do believe that from an infrastructure standpoint, it may have the DNA of something like blockchain, where all the information is kind of open and flowing. In the cryptocurrency world, that is a that's breaking out of the country based currency to something that's open and is basically controlled by a kind of an open mass audience that is little accountability in terms of, I don't know, beliefs or values. It just is. And so if you can, and I know that's a very kind of blurry and ambiguous, sort of, thought that I just laid out there, but I do see something that's going to be, it's going to it's going to make it hard for the traditional. I mean, even if we go back to MySpace, like those traditional platforms, I think are going to go to the wayside, and there very well may be a brand and a tech company behind this sort of like future platform, but I think it's going to be a lot more free flowing and a lot more perhaps fluid, even between platforms, if that makes sense.
Yeah. In both ways. Yeah. I mean, I always imagine there could be some sort of platform beneath a platform that allows you to take your friends and your likes and your interests with you when one platform starts
Yeah.
to monetize too heavily and block you and gate you from all the experiences, or the culture shifts there and you're like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore, and you're like, that no problem, I'll just take this template of these same interest, likes, connections. Maybe there's a hierarchy of connections, my best friends, my acquaintances, and random people I've interacted with on the whatever, the metaverse, the internet, whatever it is at that moment in time. We're just going to go over here now. Now all of a sudden it's social video, but we've got the same connections, or it's, I don't know,
That's right.
music remixes, but we've got the same connections. I don't know. It's a cool idea. It's hard to imagine exactly, what that looks and feels like, and it sucks to be like kind of like looking into the future and have that question mark, like what is, like you said, what is going to be the next format or the next platform. Like, who would imagine that 30-second funny videos would take the entire world by storm,
Yeah, I think a fascinating model, to bring it back to sync licensing, perhaps is to look at something like the Creative Commons realm, and where you can go to, I believe there's at least one central site, if not multiple options for Creative Commons, where you can look at photographs and videos and music and different media, and based on how each piece of media is labeled or is cataloged, you can use it for different reasons, with attribution, without attribution, with pay, without pay, depending on what you're doing. And so if you can imagine something that's a little more open like that, but where when you use a song, there is this blockchain feature where agreement goes with the song wherever it goes. The ownership rights flow with it. It's basically an electronic contract that is embedded in the song, that states the terms and states, what the price will be, how you can use it, and what happens to it. Is it exclusive? Is it not exclusive? Perhaps the person who's using it or licensing the song, perhaps by paying a certain fee, they're actually also buying in, a very small ownership percentage to the song. There's really interesting ideas and concepts out there that, perhaps might look something more similar to the way that Creative Commons is certainly is currently administered. So it's exciting. It's right now, I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg of what Web 3.0 is. There's a lot of people, taking some attempts at it that are pretty crude and not really moving the needle yet. But give it a little bit of time and a little bit of marination, I think it will. Now, the other thing the other seed I wanted to plant as far as what the future may look like in terms of the sync licensing and music and media. My hope is the future looks very different than it has looked in the rearview mirror. It does look today, and what I mean is in terms of the makeup, the music licensing industry, the music industry, the media industries, especially in the United States and North America, and I'd say even globally, have largely been controlled by a very kind of monoculture of wealthy. At the very top of these organizations, very wealthy, like white men kind of running the show. And then, even historically, as you look at music supervisors, for like important shows and things like that, it still tends to be, majority white men and more and more women, but it's a very homogenous culture of gatekeepers. And I'm really excited to see how much progress has been made just in the last few years in terms of diversity and equity. But I really want to see this our industry transform and who's doing what. And so, we're doing a lot of hard work internally at Marmoset, to get our ourself like in shape, if you will, and looking for opportunities for us to do better in those terms. And also, we're looking at our clients and the kind of work we do, and are starting to look at them through a lens of how can we make an impact on the greater community so that we can have greater representation and really more equity in everything that's happening. So it's not such a homogenous, white power structure among like who has say and what happens and what doesn't. And I know that can sound a little bit loaded, or it can sound a little, can make people that maybe represent like me. I'm a cis, white, straight male. With privilege. It could make people that maybe look like me or identify as me a little scared or anxious about what that means. But what I really hope the future will look like is it's inclusive of everyone, including those identified like me, and it's safe and inclusive of people like me and people like you, Dimitri, and people who identify in a wide array of genders and races and orientations and classes, so that we can have a better community and have a better impact on the things we're doing. So I'm really hopeful that is what it looks like, and that it won't also. It's not going to be the rich getting richer and this amassing wealth and power from a few different companies, your Sonys and Warners and BMGs and a few, really powerful companies running the show. I'd love to see a world where there's a lot more wealth distribution, a lot more power distribution, and just a lot more access for everyone. And so I think we're heading that way, but it's going to take, I think, a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment for us to get there. I'm curious, like along those lines, how do you see it?
Well, I mean, I've been an advocate for the kind of thing you're talking about since I was a kid. A teenager in New York City, involved in anti-racism and anti-sexism activism. So I'm right there with you, man. I really am. I like the hopefulness that you have, and I also like that even if we're talking about like, let's go sci-fi, let's talk about the future of tech and the future of music, that you bring it back to those real like human elements, because whenever we have a question like that, we're saying, well, who's going to have access to those innovations, or who's going to drive those innovations, or who's going to benefit, or who's going to profit from those innovations. And so you're just telling it like it is, as far as I can tell. Like, I'm not shocked. I'm like,
Yeah.
to me, that's that. The fact that you bring it up, and it's woven throughout this conversation today, is indicative that it's on your mind a lot, and that you integrate it into everything from the artists you work with, the brands you work with, the teams you work with, and how you see the future. So
Sure.
I think it's the right way to think. I think the diversity, in terms of like recognizing that the diversity of, say, America, for example, is not going away. It's only becoming more of something that needs to be addressed. And honestly, it hasn't been
That's
addressed.
right.
It has not been addressed, not just in the music industry, but in all industries. It hasn't really been addressed in the kind of the framework that you're putting out there. So that's my reaction to it, Ryan Wines.
Yeah. Well, the thing, with that said, so I hear you saying it hasn't been addressed, and I agree with you. Although I do find it interesting, it's rather trendy in branding and marketing right
True.
now on all levels. To be, putting people of color in your advertising, to be talking about diversity, to be, putting rainbow emojis and all of your online content. But and if I'm really pressed to ask, like, is that good or bad? I think I'd say authenticity is what really matters. And I guess I'm glad that there's more of this in the conversation, mainstream, whether it's branding and marketing or otherwise. I'm glad it's there, but I really believe authenticity matters. And so the only way to really push through and know, if this is just somebody talking the talk, or if these brands and companies, whether it's music licensing, or PR firms or otherwise, are walking the walk, is to have some level of transparency. And so we are working really hard to kind of explore and experiment with transparency, perhaps model what it could look like, not just for us but for others. And so we are the first company in our arena, and I say arena, I'll say the intersection of music and media and tech. We're the first company in our arena to be brave enough to publish an annual transparency report. So we're on year 2 now, and really it's twofold. It's not just to like say, hey, look at us, aren't we great? We're transparent. Really, first it's to look in the mirror, to take a really hard look in the mirror and just take inventory of, like, how are we doing in all areas, like leadership internally, or education internally, or in terms of the kind of artists and record labels that we work with and represent, or in terms of like where we're spending our dollars and what we're doing there. We're looking at all the things, taking inventory, and then really analyzing, identifying, like, where can we improve? What areas do we need to put the most time and work into so that we can be better? Because if we're a better organization, then we're going to have a better impact on our community. If we're a better impact on our community, then that has ripple effects, out into industry, out into business, and beyond. And so really, publishing an annual transparency report is a way of providing a clear line of sight through the entire organization. It's our method of pulling back the curtain to publicly show, where all of our shortcomings are and where we need to improve. And it's also hopefully a beacon, an affirming beacon, not a one that scares people or puts people off because it looks like we're just signaling and saying how great we are, but really looking for affirmation to say, hey, who else is interested in this, and who else cares about these values? Who else wants to improve their community in terms of equity, in terms of diversity, in terms of sustainability, in terms of impact in the community? And what's been cool as we've been, we're in year 2 of this, is it's been a wonderful, wonderful introductory talking point with clients, with competitors, with even companies in the greater business community that aren't even in our arena, to talk about, like, what kind of work it takes, to achieve some of the things that we've been able to achieve, or to be aware of the sort of areas that we need to work on where we're falling short. And so, starting that transparency report and really digging into transparency, I believe is the most important piece if we want to really dig into, how to move the needle. So your point was, surprise around the fact that there's been so little movement in the music industry, in the media industry, in the tech industry, on things like equity and inclusion and diversity and sustainability. There has been little movement, and yet there's a lot of talk and a lot of marketing and branding around it, and there's a gap. I think what you're identifying, Dimitri, is the gap. And so I think the way we bridge that gap is for folks to start being a little more transparent about what they're doing, and not transparency, to embarrass anyone or to make anybody feel inadequate or like they're missing the mark, but really transparency so we can just have a benchmark or a baseline that we can then start working to improve by. And I'm really interested in seeing like who else is willing in the business communities and beyond, who else is willing to come along and add some transparency so we can also working on this together. Clearly, I'm fired up on the topic and really excited about it. And so all of that to say, if anybody out there hears this and is curious and wants to know more about what that looks like for us, or what the work has been like, or how I might even be able to share some experience or some resources and support you and others on this, hit me up at Ryan@marmosetmusic.com or Ryan at trackclub.com. Like, I would love to walk alongside anyone and be a help, be a resource, for doing this work, because we've got to do more. And it starts with people like you and me and people that might be listening.
Awesome. Well, it's super cool to get into that side of the business. Like I said, it's been full circle in the conversation. Really interesting that we've covered so many different aspects, from traditional sync to emerging creator economy to this kind of diversity and equity work and a new approach to that through transparency. The report's on your website, I think. I've read through it as well, which is very transparent and really interesting to see that role modeling. Ryan, it's been a blast having you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Looking forward to running into you in person soon.
Right back at you, Dimitri. Yes, next time you're in Portland, or the next time I get out to your neck of the woods, would love to have a cup of tea or go for a walk with you.
Let's do it. Awesome. Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know you can dig deeper into all our episodes with the show notes at musictectonics.com? While you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference, sign up for our newsletter to get updates, or get the Music Tectonics app for music tech news. Everything we do explores seismic shifts that shake up music and technology the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and find me, Dimitri Vitsa, if you can spell it, on LinkedIn. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.